Welcome, everyone, to the Master B2B Fireside Chat Series. My name is Brian Beck. I'm the co-founder of the Master B2B community and a thought leadership series for B2B e-commerce professionals. We have a great topic we're going to be talking about today, the customer experience imperative for B2B distributors. And I have a great group of people here to talk with me about this. My first guest is Ty Sweet. Ty is the Chief Voice Officer. I love that title, Ty. Chief Voice Officer and Senior Technical Marketing Engineer at KIBO. Ty, welcome, and tell us what KIBO does.
Absolutely. Chief Voice Officer completely made up by myself, but I love that the industry has taken on to that. I'm hoping to leverage that into something someday. So KIBO is a full stack e-commerce and order management solution within the industry, right? We handle both B2C and B2B. We also have subscriptions and manage basically all of the e-commerce and order management for a lot of different types of companies out there. I'll keep that brief. I've been with KIBO for about 5 years. I've had a number of roles, which is why I am jack of all trades, master of none. So.
Awesome. Well, Ty, and I hope you don't get laryngitis, man, as a chief voice officer. My goodness.
Right.
Fantastic. All right, Sam, let me see if I say your last name right. Sam Aldinger, did I say that right?
Aldinger,
I was close. Well, Sam, welcome. You were a longtime leader at Fastenal, over a 20-year career there. You managed their PIM and a bunch of other functions. So excited to have you on the call today. And now you're a consultant with B2B Squared. Sam, you want to talk to us a little bit about your background and your time at Fastenal and what you're doing today?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me on. Sam Aldinger. I cut my teeth within industrial distribution in Fastenal, 20 plus years. Grew up in the operations side. So all things, starting in manufacturing, all things procurement, ultimately in supply chain. So all upstream procurement, supply chain operations activities. Fastener nerd, 0.1%er in the industry of fastener knowledge. And ultimately led into data management. And I left Fastenal in 2024 and started independent consulting and wound myself up with partnering with Jay Schneider at B2B Squared, in
Awesome.
which we help practitioners identify their digital roadmap and tech stack, as well as their product data functions. So
Fantastic. We've known Jay for years. A great group there. That's fantastic. Well, welcome, Sam. So guys, we're talking about the digital experience here and the customer experience overall for B2B distributors. Let's start by defining what exactly is the customer experience imperative. Like, why is this important? And are we talking really just about digital channels and e-commerce, or is this brought more broadly across the organization? And what role does digital play in it? Ty, you want to start us off?
Absolutely, and I'm going to answer the second question first,
Sure.
because the short answer there is no. It's absolutely not just digital, right? The customer experience imperative is the recognition that how a distributor serves a buyer has become as important as what they sell, right? So that means the accuracy of a delivery promise made by a sales rep on the phone, the reliability of real-time inventory data in a self-service portal, and the speed of quote response, the clarity of confirmation email, all of that is the experience, right? So most distributors are trying to keep their promises with outdated ERPs, bolt-on portals, manual workarounds, and the result is can lead to costly premium freight, to fix bad promises, split shipments, installed quotes. That's a cross-channel failure, not just a website problem. So I think another way to look at this is, why is it an imperative?
Right.
Is it because buyers now have alternatives and they know it's the competitive bar has been raised permanently by digital native competitors and marketplace experiences. Standing still is no longer neutral. It's a slow loss of share, actually.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time helping and thinking about helping companies with their Amazon business strategy, Ty, and to talk about raising the bar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, $80 billion of raising the bar there in volume. Sam, you were at Fastenal, and there's, I don't know, 2 or 3 SKUs there, right? I think maybe millions.
maybe 5.
Right. What is it, 3.5?
Maybe 5.
Maybe 5 million. Wow, crazy. So think about the experience there, right? And how, I mean, from your world at Fastenal, all that experience you have, and the imperative that you saw. And Fastenal is a company that's invested a lot in digital tools and cross-channel, vendor managed inventory, other things that you guys have done there Tell us more about your experience there and why this was an imperative at Fastenal. Did you even get into sort of digitally enabling that cross-channel experience?
Fastenal's original tagline was growth through customer service.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, Ty, when you said that, it's not just digital, you're absolutely right. But customer experience catchphrase comes through in digital conversations, period. Customer experience was not discussed before digital. It was customer service, it was some other function, and it was a human analog engagement experience that Fastenal, traditionally was founded on. And as the world has digitized, you see customer experience coming on, and the rub really is between transitioning the traditional sales experience with the client, with the customer, and how does that now look when you digitize some of that experience? How do you complement and transition what you've branded yourself as pre-digital into the digital realm?
Yeah.
And that's where customer experience now becomes a catchphrase. And everything you mentioned, Ty, is right. It can get complex, but all customers are looking for really three things in B2B at least. They're looking for quality, service, and price in everything that they procure through distribution. And you could almost organize everything under one of those three tiers. And I would say that the challenge is, and the opportunities are, in simplifying your customer experience for your end users while maintaining the brand recognition that you've built pre-digital.
And the experience with the Fastenal with that many products, Sam, had to be a real challenge because you got to get the right product in front of the customer quickly, right? That's a big piece of it. So data was obviously an important part of that, I'm sure. Right?
Massive, yeah. In the words of Jason Greenwood, massive.
Right. So, guys, we're in a world where the majority of B2B buyers are now millennials or younger. The procurement professionals is now a younger person who grew up with experiences on places like Amazon. They're digital natives, right? And they're bringing that B2C like experience or expectation to their B2B purchasing activities. Why is this happening? Where does it manifest most in the customer experience, guys? What do you think?
I'll start just to kind of piggyback on my previous comment. I hired a bunch of these individuals into my team, even internally. And one of the biggest things I find is that because they're growing up in a digitally native environment, they don't like to ask for help. They don't like to pick up the phone and call. They will go out of their way to figure out if they can solve the problem themselves digitally. And so you see that come across in the buying experience. It used to be where, hey, you could call me, pick up the phone, I'll solve your problem. You don't have that luxury with this younger generation as much. If they get frustrated, they might not pick up the phone and call. They may, but in all likelihood is they'll find the path of least resistance and follow that buying channel.
Yeah, Sam, I saw a stat a few years ago from Digital Commerce 360 that said that 74% of millennials will actively avoid a salesperson. So it's incredibly a self-service for sure. Ty, are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would piggyback on exactly what you're saying there, Sam. Even if looking at the younger generation, like even my kids, right? Like my kids don't want to pick up the phone and order a pizza. They have no idea how that process works. Like if they can't order it online without not talking to anyone, they have no interest in it whatsoever. Like you see that just kind of in that generation, right? It's generational. It's also contextual, right? So, as these generations kind of start to move up, right? Millennials now make up most of all B2B buyers and close to half of the final purchasing decision makers. They grew up shopping on places like Amazon, tracking packages in real time and getting instant answers from those apps, right? They're not talking to real people. They're using technology to solve all of that, right? So they don't really see a reason that their purchasing experience at work should feel like a step backward. Okay, why do I now need to pick up the phone and talk to somebody? Why do I need to, do this manual process? Like this should all be automated, right? So research shows that most B2B buyers now expect the same speed, ease, and personalization from business purchases that they experience as consumers, right? So that's the experience they have, and they're bringing that to the B2B side, right? So where does this manifest most acutely? And I think you touched on all of these, Sam, right? So 3 places: search and findability, right? Where if a buyer can't find the right spec quickly, they're going to leave, right? Inventory visibility and delivery confidence, right? Where vague or wrong product availability information is going to destroy trust, right? If I can't trust that you say what you say, that you have what you say you have, then I don't trust really anything you're doing, right? But the biggest piece, and I think this is what we're talking about, right, is this self-service piece, right? These buyers want to manage orders, they want to check status, and they want to reorder without calling or talking to anyone. They want to be able to have that self-service aspect, right? And I think we touched upon this, right? Only about a third of the B2B buyers say that their digital buying experiences are excellent, even though over 2/3 prefer to purchase online, right? That's the gap where distributors are losing.
Right. You know, it's funny. We can, it begs the question, guys, is this the death of a salesperson, right? I mean, what's the role of the salesperson? Any thoughts there?
You know, moving forward, that's a great question. I think that role starts to change a little bit. I think you're always going to have a need for a salesperson, or at least somebody that has a physical representation that can show up at a business and at least check and make sure everything's going okay. Like, I think there's always going to be a need for that. But I think the overall need for, you know, them being the crucial piece of order intake, you know, all of that piece that you would normally associate with a sales rep is going to change drastically. I don't, how do you see it, Sam? Because I'm honestly, you would have dealt with that on the other side.
There's this constant question of, you know, is digital replacing the sales channel? And you can treat it that way. Absolutely. Is you can either have, well, this comes in our e-commerce bucket, or this comes in our traditional sales channel. And we found that the sales leadership, if they drove the strategy around digital, it actually was 10 times more successful, because what they did was they complemented their experience with what the salespeople didn't want to do.
Right.
Mundane, the stuff that took up most of your time that didn't give you a lot of value could now be essentially repurposed into a digital framework and allow you to be much more proactive on what you wanted to do, and that was what? Build relationships.
Right. And so where is my order, right, Sam? Things like that.
Get rid of the order management piece. Maybe tie it, you know, tee up what KIBO can be strong at supporting is the order management. Just following orders, chasing orders, understanding what that means, the returns, anything that doesn't bring immediate value but is critical for maintaining a customer relationship. That is a huge opportunity for sales to push it off, get it off your plate, and drive the strategy of what you want that to look like as you engage your customers.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for Hope for Humanity. That's this is good. So from the sales side of things, I'm still okay if I'm adding value. So what kinds of things does a distributor have to do to keep up with these new buyer expectations, guys? Ty, what do you think?
I think there's a few things that matter more than others. There's a lot that we could probably discuss. We could fill the next 3 hours probably discussing that, but I'll focus on a few things that I've really seen, right? You know, one of the biggest ones is unifying data across channels, right? So a modern B2B buyer uses an average of like around 10 channels, I think, to research and purchase the products that they're looking for. So, right. So a winning strategy involves meeting those buyers on their preferred channels with consistent pricing, inventory, order data, really regardless of the channel, right? Because once you have data silos, those data silos will then break trust, right? You've got information in one channel that you don't have in another. And if those channels aren't sharing that information, you're going to break that trust there, right? So I think another one is make promises you can keep. And this seems basic, right? Make promises you can keep and keep the promises you make. But let's look at that, you know, from a specific buyer, you know, seller kind of roles, right? So real-time inventory visibility and accurate estimated delivery dates, also known as EDD, that's what, you know, the industry nomenclature, industry term is, aren't nice to haves, right? They're the foundation of buyer confidence, right? So enhanced real-time EDD calculations using location fulfillment capacity, processing times, transfer times, carrier transit data, to improve delivery accuracy and transparency. All of that is that directly drives repeat purchase behavior, right? So all of that information is crucial at this point. A couple other things I want to mention really quickly. One, distributors should also enable true self-service, like we mentioned, right? Giving customers the ability to manage their own accounts, track orders, submit reorders, manage payment options. That creates a frictionless buying experience, which is what kind of these newer generations are looking for when we're getting into that, right? Buyers who can do these things themselves are more satisfied and more loyal, and your cost to serve goes down as well, right? Like, you don't have to have all of these people now meeting these needs. All of that is being handled by the buyers themselves. And lastly, don't rip and replace everything at once, right? Most distributors have significant existing infrastructure. The good news is modern platforms like KIBO allow you to modernize incrementally, addressing the most painful friction points first without a complete massive overhaul, because that can be very daunting, right? A distributor could be looking at this going, man, I got to completely replace this entire system. No, you don't. Not anymore.
Yeah.
So,
well, no, it does sound like a lot, Ty, but I've heard you say the word data a lot.
Yeah.
And Sam, you did this at Fastenal, data foundations. What did you have to do there to get your data in line? I mean, that's the basis of all this, isn't it?
I would say there is such an underdeveloped data story across the industry, and everybody's talking about it, but I think a lot of people are struggling with the how.
Right.
They even know the why, maybe not in their gut where it like forces them to prioritize data projects, but enough where they understand that everything relies on data. I saw that essentially getting all the interdepartments aligned on who owns what data.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of data transactions, to your point, Ty, and that usually isn't tied to one team. So what is the pricing team doing with taxonomy and things around categorization as it relates to pricing models? And how does that relate then to supplier development and onboarding new products? How do you streamline those channels and understand how you optimize that margin and ultimately deliver a competitive product to your customer? That takes supply chain, that takes category managers, that takes pricing, all to be in the same room, and it takes alignment on who owns what. What you do over in category development affects how we're pricing customers, and that's pretty critical. We need to understand exactly what you're doing there, how you're making changes. And so defining those dependencies and understanding consumers of that data and what they need roll up to and elevates the role of the data stewards or the data owners upstream when they're creating and managing that data.
Sam, did you guys have a PIM system in place? You're talking about data across multiple functions, and there's got to be some standardization, right? Did you guys have a PIM system? Is a full-blown PIM even necessary here?
Yes. In my experience, absolutely. Depending on your maturity level, I think is where
Right.
PIM comes in. And if you've got multi-system connectivity, multiple downstream channels in terms of consuming that data,
Yep.
potentially, and in the case of all the M&A activity going around at multiple ERPs, you need a
Sure.
central place of consolidation to build out those rules and that foundation.
Sure. So, Sam, you were at a multi-trillion-dollar company, or whatever big Fastenal is. Very complex. Ty, from your perspective, is a PIM always necessary? For mid-market or maybe companies, to your point, Sam, that are not as mature, different stages. What are your thoughts?
yeah, it's funny. My answer is going to sound different, but the reasoning behind it is going to be exactly like Sam's, right? Sam's coming from the point of view of a distributor with 5 million SKUs. In that case,
Right.
yeah, you probably absolutely need a PIM, right? When we're talking
Right.
about more mid-market, maybe not necessarily, right? It's just like, to Sam's point, it does depend on the complexity, right? For distributors with a large, technically complex catalog sourced from many suppliers, say like a Fastenal, a dedicated PIM is going to be transformative to that business, right? They absolutely need that. At the end of the day, it's all about making sure that the data you have is correct and enriched from all possible sources. And modern day PIM providers are excellent at that, right?
Right.
Specific situations, absolutely, without a question, need it, right? But for a lot of distributors, the bigger problem isn't a missing tool, right? It's that product data lives in the ERP, it lives in spreadsheets and supplier PDFs with really no consistent structure or ownership. So before asking kind of this question of what tool do I need? I think the more important question is, what does my product data actually need to do, right? A catalog capability built into your commerce platform can handle a lot, right? And that's kind of more of where I'm framing this towards, right? Obviously, I'm a little bit more biased, but KIBO's got an open API-first architecture that allows you to integrate the best-of-breed tools like a PIM without being constrained by the platform's roadmap for these peripheral areas. So we can absolutely bring PIM information in. We can ingest that. We can push that forward. 100% can do that. So you can, but what this also allows you to do is you can start with what's built into KIBO, right? All of the enriching pieces like creating custom product attributes, you know, and enriching all of that product description, all of that product information. You can start there and then say, you know what, all right, that we've kind of reached capacity or reached all that we can do with this. And then you can move to a dedicated PIM when the need justifies that, and we can ingest all of that, right?
I mean,
I think the other piece, though, sorry to cut you off, Brian.
No, go ahead.
But I want to make another point here. I think the other piece is also the governance, right? So a question I would be asking is who owns the product data quality and how does that get updated, right? Technology helps, but the process and ownership model matters just as much.
Well, that's a great point, Ty, because we asked that question at our roundtables and such, and our summit and places like that. Like, who owns product data? And everyone goes like, you know, like that, like they're pointing different directions because
until there's a change, and then they're saying, well, that's affecting me. This is not what I do, and then they want to own it, and they want to control it, but they don't want to own it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, but it's a good point, Ty, you raised, which is your e-com. You know, in KIBO, for example, you know, your e-com platform can be a system of record and can help you for product data, right? And can help you down the road a bit with this. You know, if you're not Fastenal with 5 million SKUs, right? Do you have companies using KIBO as their system of record for product data?
Absolutely, we do, and really that's the way that we position it. We're not trying to talk anybody out of using any type of tool, right? You'll you know, when I talk about these things, like I like to couch that and say PIMs are great at what they do, and we're never going to talk anybody out of using a PIM because they're, you know, that's the right tool, and we're never going to try and compete in that space, right? The same thing with like our search, right? We offer search, but if you're looking for, you know, top of the line stuff and you absolutely need that for your business, great, go get that. We can ingest that. You know, I think it works for a lot of different things, and so. But what we tell a lot of you know, businesses that are coming to us to look at the e-commerce platform and product or side of that product, right? Because we're full stack, is take a look at what we offer first, see if that matches or meets your need. And if it doesn't, great, go get a PIM and absolutely do that. You know, same thing with an ERP, right? You absolutely need an ERP to do all of your financial and handle a lot of the you know, system of record for all of the financial pieces. But, you know, trying to use an ERP as your order management system, that starts to be where it breaks down. But you should have, you know, never not have an ERP, right? So
I would like to add that, you know, back to your very early on, Ty, you were talking about you know, there's really a process. There's processes in place that you're trying to manage, and if you talk about product onboarding, supplier, all the supplier side, and I'm biased because I come from that side. When you talk about actually following who needs to touch that product and when, that would be my biggest single piece of argument against having your product data management in a traditionally the downstream consuming side is only purely based on lineage. Sure. If you talk about working with your suppliers to get data right into your website, but then you have to somehow get that information back either into an ERP or into another application, moving that back, it depends on where that data needs to go within your processes first. Sure. And generally, you've got an order management system involved. You've got other you do have, you know, your WMS system and warehouse. At what point do those platforms essentially need to ingest product? And that's usually pre-readiness from the web. And so I see that generally speaking, if you just talk about order of events, you want your data management, at least from a product perspective, earlier on in that process from a technology perspective. That'd be my only argument against it. I'm not saying it's not relevant, but what companies lack is actually mapping out that process. What does my process look like? where does that fit? And if it makes logical sense, where if you have essentially a marketplace and everything you're doing is to support that marketplace, perfect. Maybe that's all you need. But if you have much more going on besides your front door, your front end, then that's arguably something you need to map and process out and think through. What is my best platform?
And Sam, this is stuff you're helping companies with now, right? As a consultant.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's very valuable. Given your experience, I mean, I think you probably had just a ton of value there, guys. One thing we haven't mentioned yet, which is amazing that it hasn't come up. Of course, you know what I'm going to say. The two letters AI, right? I mean, it's it's that kind of buzz. It's making it practical is the challenge. Can AI help here with data, with the customer experience? I mean, where does AI play in all of this? Thoughts?
Oh man, I've got a lot of thoughts on this. We're moving in that AI direction and doing it quickly. Not just in the customer experience, but also in our back end stuff. And we're doing some really cool stuff with it. But to answer your question specifically, yes, I think it can, and meaningfully, and in ways that are available today rather than this kind of theoretical way that we've been talking about it, right? So I think a few specific application examples that even at KIBO that we've got today, and I'm sure a lot of other providers out there at this point do, one of the big one is content generation from attributes, right? Whether they're coming from a PIM or you've got it internally, right? KIBO's AI agent enables teams to rapidly generate things like product descriptions from attributes, create essential data for like SEO metadata, all of that. We can also translate content to reach a global audience. So if you've got, full data all in a specific language, you can use AI to translate all of that into different marketplaces. So you've got AI handling a lot of your localization for you, right? So for distributors with tens of thousands of SKUs that have like skeletal descriptions, this is a real productivity unlock, right? You can have somebody go in, have these AI agents do all of this. A couple other things, semantic search that compensates for imperfect data, right? KIBO uses AI search that is powered by vector-powered and LLM-based semantic search to interpret natural language and prioritize relevant in-stock products. So even if your product titles aren't perfectly structured, it's not a perfect system that you've got, you're working with data that isn't the best, a buyer searching for something like, I don't know, a corrosion-resistant pump for salt water, they can still find what they need, right? AI search is going to buy you time while you go about fixing the underlying data, because I think we've all agreed that that's probably the most important, no matter what tool you're using.
Right.
Garbage in, garbage out, right? Lastly, supplier data onboarding, right? So AI can now help normalize the incoming product data from suppliers, parsing different formats, mapping attributes, flagging inconsistencies, and dramatically reduce the manual effort that keeps bad data in the system. Again, the caveat to all of this great technology that we're now talking about and that I've mentioned before, AI can enrich the surface data better, right? But it can't manufacture accuracy, right? At least not yet. I mean, we may get there, right? AI is doing all sorts of crazy stuff. If the specs coming from your supplier are flat wrong, AI is not going to be able to fix that.
Well, isn't that the challenge, Ty? And
Yeah.
I'm Sam, I really want your perspective on
Yeah.
this because you do this stuff. I mean, it's these are B2B applications. Sam, you put the wrong fastener into something and the building falls down, right? I mean, or whatever, the airplane falls apart. You can't do that, right? So you have to be really careful with this. There's product liability issues potentially that come up. Sam, what's your and believe me, Ty, I hear you. I think there's a lot of promise here, and it sounds like you guys have some great tools. Sam, what's your perspective on it? I mean, is AI ready for doing this? Particularly with product data.
I would say, Ty, what you highlighted were absolutely solid use cases around scaling data. So AI doesn't solve your data problems. AI enables you to fix your data problems quickly, but within a framework of governance. The governance is a big piece here. Is who defines the rules? Who defines the expectations, and how do you set that within parameters of your data flow?
Right.
Well, AI can follow rules really well. If you articulate exactly what your list of values are, what your taxonomy schema looks like, AI can help normalize that pretty quickly. Something that would take an army in the past. So it does allow the mid-market guys to scale pretty quickly and catch up to the bigger folks. However, it needs control. And from a customer experience perspective, a lot of that control actually comes from a different data platform, your customer data platform. So when you talk about capturing, what is it? Who is it that's coming on your website? What do they do? What risks do they have? What governing standards? Like, this is where actually AI can help also, and not just on a product side. Everything product-wise is critical for delivering the right product accurately to the customer. However, who's your customer? How are you capturing that? And actually, a big piece of what I'm seeing is most distributors are not actually building out their customer data well. At least maybe in the mid-market size. I think this is a maturity thing again, where the more you understand your customer, the more you can apply to them. And this is where I would scale and leverage AI as much as I possibly can. Capture customer information, build tools that help them crowdsource their experience on your e-commerce site, and understand then how do you govern the expected outcomes for the data to feed.
To that point, Sam, who are you seeing own, and Ty, your opinion too here, who are you seeing own these, that issue, the data solving is a solutioning issue? You said that was important. Obviously, governance takes leadership. Where's it coming from? The CIO, the VP of Ecom, the CEO? I mean, who, Chief Data Officer? Where's it coming from?
Depends on the company, but I would largely put that piece in the sales arm.
Sales, okay, interesting.
Think about who is closest to the customer. Decisions made. Right. I mean, Bob Curlin at Fastenal, his whole motto was, decisions made closest to the customer are usually the best.
Okay.
Now that's not always, there are always considerations, but who ultimately defines what customer experience should be? Now, I think you could introduce digital roles that support that. But that means at least one full leg of theirs needs to be directly tied to the sales, and the other side might be tied in the technology piece.
Well, it's great. It's great to hear Fastenal is thinking that way. Ty, what's your experience? I mean, when you guys see this data problem getting solved, who owns it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Sam hit the nail on the head there as far as it depends on the business, right? It depends on the size of the business, right? It's interesting to hear sales. I don't know that I've heard that before, but you're right. I mean,
just to be clear, I'm talking customer experience.
Sure.
And as it relates to knowing your customer, so customer data. Yeah. I wouldn't want a salesperson managing PIM. No way. Gotcha. Just to be clear, we're talking customer experience as it relates to digital customer coming into your digital environment. Who's directing that?
Right.
Got it.
It's that's typically going to flow down from a CIO if you've got a team that lives underneath that, right? It could be an e-commerce manager or an e-commerce team that you've got. It depends on the size of the business and who is available to be able to own that for sure.
I would caution for anybody really thinking through this from a business architecture standpoint. With the rise of digital, you see the rise and elevation of technical roles. Mm-hmm. In my experience, those technical roles are out ahead of the business trying to lead. And I think there's a place where those technical roles almost need to serve. And allow the commercial and allow the business teams to define the strategy, and the technical role comes in and says, I can fix that for you better than you can even imagine. And there's a great divide between the business and the technical, and the technical, rightfully so, is like, come on, business, let's go. We got so much we could build here, but you're way behind, so we're going to go out and lead it. And that's actually a huge imbalance to an organization if the traditionally analog teams who are complaining that they don't have all the right technology tool, and so they're just doing it, rolling up their sleeves and doing it the hard way. The executive leadership needs to position both sides against each other and say, look, you guys got to come together and solve this together, because the technical arm can enable whatever you on the business side need, but you guys have to be aligned in the strategy. And that's
Sam. This is great. We had a debate about this about 3 years ago, where we had CIOs versus VPs of e-commerce. It's really funny who should own the digital customer experience. Ty, any final thoughts on this topic?
No, I think we've covered it. I think Sam's 100% right. Like it's you start to see a lot more of the technical ownership of these pieces
Right.
as you move forward, because I think you see the need for that, right? Like that again, we've hammered this, I think, over and over, at least I have anyways, about the importance of that product data, right? And getting that right. And so I think it revealed the importance of being able to have those roles and those responsibilities in the right places.
Well, guys, one final question is coming up on time here. As you think about if you're talking to a B2B leader about this issue, customer, let's take it up a level, the customer experience and all the things they could be doing to prioritize their investments in their customer experience. Where do they start? I mean, how do they think about that? One piece of advice you'd have, maybe Ty, start with you. What would you suggest they look at first?
Yeah, and I'm so interested to hear Sam's answer on this.
Well, you want to get his answer
No,
first?
no,
Go
no.
ahead, Sam.
Listen, let me run. Well, I'll run mine first, and then we
Go
can
ahead.
have Sam respond to it, because what I really want to have happen here is Sam go, "You're 100% right," but we'll see if I get that right.
Okay, all right.
But just based on the role that he's got, right, with everything that he's doing now, I'm super intrigued to hear. So I would say you should start by auditing the buyer journey from the buyer's perspective, right? I feel like that is one of the most important pieces. You've got to know and see the pain points that they have, right? And not start from your internal system map, right? So where does a buyer lose confidence? Where do they have to call or email because the digital experience fails them? That's your starting point, especially now, right? Especially when we're talking about the kind of the newer generation coming up and not really wanting to communicate in that way, right?
Right.
I think once you've kind of looked at that, you can then prioritize the highest friction, highest volume interactions first. Really, what's the biggest impact to your business, right? For most distributors, at least what I'm seeing, that's going to be your inventory visibility and your accurate delivery promises, right? Because those touch every order. If a buyer can't get reliable answers to, do you have it and when can I get it, really nothing else matters. After that, I would say think in modules, not transformations, right? We've moved away from this kind of all-in-one, rip and replace, way of replacing modules now, right? A lot of these platforms are API first. They offer microservices, a microservices approach that will let distributors deploy in phases and modernize incrementally, right? You don't have to do it all in one big bang, right? Maybe you fix the EDD problem, then you tackle the self-service quoting, then you tackle the portal experience. And one other thing I'll mention, and then I'm really interested again to see what Sam has to say. I would say don't underestimate the operational side, right? The best buyer-facing experience falls apart if your order management system can't back it up, right? Unlike legacy systems or ERP add-ons that record the transactions but cannot optimize promises, a unified platform that connects commerce and order orchestration allows B2B organizations to reduce expedited shipping costs and prevent the margin loss associated with manual processes.
Yeah, and the customer experience post purchase is also critical. Good, Sam. Okay, so what's your piece of advice, Sam? Where do they start?
Ty, 100% agree with you.
Yes.
And in this regard first, there's a lot more color to this, but in this regard, you start with your customer, period.
Right.
If you are not starting with your customer, you could be starting to build a trajectory that misses bad.
Right.
So you got to anchor it in what is the customer, and this is why I elevate sales in terms of responsibility.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for your customer at the end of the day? Who's responsible for engaging your customer? That being said, they need a lot of help, and if you actually follow that back and say, well, I need to start with my customer, therefore I need to get them a marketplace, or I need to get them an e-commerce platform to engage me on, but you don't have the infrastructure around your operational side or your product. Many distributors have way more parts in their four walls than what they actually put on their website. Well, why is that? Is because they're ultimately trying to make sure that the customer experience of what the customer does see is good. Well, that takes a lot of management and a lot of alignment across what good looks like. And so the challenge with in actual investment of your tech stack and building out your digital landscape is trying to see the whole picture. You at least have to understand the dependencies from the customer back in terms of major milestones and major initiatives. And then when you talk about modular, you actually now allow your businesses within each area to grow into that larger picture, but grow at their own pace. And then you as the leader have to understand, where are these dependencies starting to trip up in terms of deadlines and other key milestones within your company's progress? Because there is only going to be a finite amount of resources that you can throw at this within a given time, because at the end of the day, you're P&L and you have to run. You have to make sure that your CapEx measures and balances with your ultimate trajectory and growth.
Awesome.
So it's kind of a cop-out, but it is also situational. You have to start with your customer. You have to understand where you're at, and you have to see what brings the most value. One anecdote that I would say is, everybody looks at e-commerce and a website as customer acquisition. I would say most people underestimate the customer adoption piece. Mm-hmm. What about your current accounts, and how do you improve? Yeah. How do you operationalize and improve your current accounts? And a new website isn't going to bring you this massive amount of top line funnel, top of funnel customers. It'll help. But what about your customers you already have? They're going to be most forgiving in all of this with you, because you're already selling to them. And as if they see you growing digitally, they're going to give you the best feedback and be the most forgiving in you as you invest in this realm.
Sam, that's a great point. Thank you for that. We got to leave it there, guys, for time's sake. But what an awesome conversation. Sam, Ty, thank you so much for your time today on our Master B2B Fireside Chat. You guys, it's just been a very rich discussion and very valuable for our listeners. So thank you so much for being here. We will see everyone next time on our next Fireside Chat. Keep an eye out for that on our website, Master B2B, and through our social channels. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Ty.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks for your voice.
Chief Voice Officer. I love it.